All right, this is part 2 of Concept 30, dealing with absolute value equations. Um, you'll see in this piece that the equations look a little more complicated. We have things outside the absolute value, so we would just sort of get rid of those things and then repeat the steps we did in the previous lesson. So when I say get rid of those things, I'm specifically referring to the 3 and the -9 here in this equation. I want to be able to get rid of those to get the absolute value by itself. And when I am getting the absolute value by itself, I am isolating the absolute value. So the first step is to isolate the absolute value. So we're going to get some practice with that. And to do that, we're going to use our properties of equality, right? What we do when we solve equations, we always do the opposite operation in order to undo what is there. So in this first example, I need to get rid of this -3. It's in the way of my absolute value being by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides to make it go away, to eliminate it. So the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to 20. Well, this looks just like what we did in the last lesson. What we're going to do is we're going to split up the equation into a positive and negative answer. So I have x minus 6 is equal to 20 and x minus 6 is equal to -20. And then I just solve both equations and I get 2 different answers. So again, I would add 6 to both sides here and also do it for this equation because the steps are the same. And x here is equal to 26 and x here is equal to -14. So we have 2 answers, just like in the previous lesson in part 1. Let's try another example. In this scenario, again, we have our 5 that's in the way of the absolute value being by itself. So we need to get rid of the 5 by subtracting, by doing the opposite. Now I have 4x minus 8, the absolute value of 4x minus 8 equals 2 minus 5, which is -3. Well, like we looked at in the previous lesson, whenever I take the absolute value of something, I'm never going to get a negative number. So there's no value of x that would fit into this equation in order to make this equation work. I'm never going to get a negative number. So what I would do is I would circle this right here and say cannot be negative. Cannot be negative. So this is no solution. I leave it like that. I can't solve it. Let's take a look at number 4, because it's a little. So number 3 and number 4. Number 3 is just like the first couple we did, but number 4 is a little interesting. So if I were to go about solving this, I need to again isolate my variable. So I need to get rid of this my absolute value. I need to get rid of this -3, and I need to get rid of the 10. I'm going to get rid of the 10 first. Like this here, by subtracting, doing the opposite. So now I have -3 times the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to -6. And you might say, hey, this is a negative number, so I can't solve, right? So there's no solution because the number can't be negative. But we're not done with isolating our variable. If I were to divide the top and the bottom by negative, or the left and the right by -3, well, the -3's go away here, and I'm left with my absolute value. And -6 divided by -3, well, negative divided by negative is positive, so it's just +2. So this can be solved once we isolate completely. So then you would, of course, split the equation into a positive and a negative, and then solve both. X plus 4 is equal to 2, x plus 4 is equal to -2, and when you subtract 4 on both sides, x is equal to -2, and x is equal to -6. Finally, what you'll see in an example such as number 5 here, again, when we go to isolate, we would subtract 8 on both sides. And then I have 3x plus 6, and absolute value is equal to 0. Now this is an interesting case because my next step would be to split the equation into a positive and negative portion, but 0 can either be positive or negative, so I can't really split it. So instead of having two solutions like an inequality or like a absolute value would, it only has one. So we would simply solve it as 3x plus 6 is equal to 0. And we would subtract 6 on both sides. 3x equals -6. Divide by 3, x is equal to -2. And that is the one and only solution that will fit into my absolute value equation. And that is concept 30, part 2.